I thought I'd start doing a new series in hopes of maybe helping some players out, as well as to help promote some things that I'm doing. And what I've done is this is going to be looking at possible endgame scenarios in the game of Town of Salem. Now, the first one I look at here is the scenarios that could play out with the following four roles still left in the game: a spy, jester, arsonist, and werewolf. Now, I've actually seen this scenario play out in one of the various ways it could, and so I must add some other details to set things up for you. Now, it is the beginning of day 6. The spy has already identified themselves, and they're pretty much at this point useless. The arsonist has had a pattern of dousing a victim and igniting the person on the following night. And the werewolf was recently doused. Now, added to this that the role of jester is not yet revealed or known, but just that it is a neutral evil role, it sets up for a very interesting scenario. Now, if we ignore certain assumptions on what actions would happen under these conditions, by the end of night 6, a winner can be determined. And it's actually quite surprising how it breaks down. First off, in all the scenarios I could calculate, a total of 65, the werewolf would be the clear favorite, winning about 31% of those scenarios. The next would go to the jester, which would mean that the jester got lynched, and as a result, everyone else got wiped out. Coming in, and that came in at about 21.5%. And next would be the town winning, which means that both the arsonist and the werewolf would be wiped out and the spy remained. After that, clocking in at about 70%, would be the arsonist winning. And then there's about 10% where by the end of night 6, a winner cannot be determined. They would have to go one more day before determining the winner. And there is a possibility, like 1.5%, that no winner would be determined. Everybody who could win would be wiped out, and the only person left alive would be the jester, and that would mean that the jester has lost as well. It is quite surprising, and that's ignoring certain glaring things that would happen. Now let's take into account the main option basically available to the arsonist. Since they have probably figured out that they have doused the werewolf, their only option would be then to ignite. With this option made clear, things play out a little bit differently. first off, the total number of endgame scenarios drops from 65 to 33, and the majority of them, 11, lead to a win by the arsonist. The next highest number goes to the town, 9 wins out of 33 at 27.27%, and then the jester has 8 wins, which is 24.24%. This leaves the werewolf with 2 wins, a 7th day needed to determine the winner in 2 cases, and of course still the 1 case where no one will win, which shows you how much certain information can change things. We went from a werewolf possibility to a arsonist possibility. But there are other things that could be factored in to decide what is most likely to happen. Now we need to focus on basically what happens if one of these 4 roles ends up being lynched. We'll look at the spy first, because that one's the most obvious, if you ask me. See, if the spy would end up getting lynched, now first off, the town loses, so they don't benefit, and the jester also loses because there's something that becomes remarkably obvious when it comes down to the spy getting lynched, and that is pretty much everyone now knows everyone else's roles. The arsonist will know who the werewolf is and who the jester is. The werewolf will know who the jester is and who the arsonist is, and the jester will know who the werewolf and arsonist is. And since the werewolf's going to end up ignited by the arsonist, the werewolf basically loses in this scenario. The only one who has a chance at winning in this scenario is the arsonist. And that's only if he can luck out and not get mauled by the werewolf. See, this is with the spy being lynched, this could lead to the no-win scenario. So obviously everyone will come to the conclusion the spy can't be lynched. Now, if the arsonist ends up being the one lynched, well, of course this is bad for the arsonist, but it's also bad for the jester in town as well. Again, the jester will not end up getting lynched, which means they lose their game. But the spy, the town, basically lose out now because they're the only main target for the werewolf. And since the arsonist is dead, the werewolf has no threat of being torched, burned, whatever they want to call it. In short, this scenario works great for the werewolf, and only the werewolf. And pretty much everyone else is basically they're losers. The third case for someone being lynched would be the werewolf, of course. And if the werewolf ends up being lynched, this is basically the best thing for everybody. The town doesn't have to worry about being killed that night, nor does the jester, and in fact the jester could end up getting lynched the next day, which is good for the jester. The downside, well, the arsonist has to douse someone again, which means he got to wait a day before killing someone. But with the less numbers, the arsonist could be easily found out. In fact, the only one who actually really loses in this scenario is, of course, the werewolf, because, well, they're dead. The arsonist could still get away with a win, but just a little bit trickier. Then there's the jester, which can be a bit of a complicated one. See, if the jester is lynched, well, it's pretty straightforward on what will play out. Jester dies and the spirit will one of the guilty votes. And then the arsonist and the werewolf will most likely wipe each other out. So it all depends on who the jester chooses to haunt. I mean, just go with someone who's going to die, or haunt the town who's the remaining person left. This is one of those cases where, jester wins the game because everybody else died. So this makes this the most desired thing to happen for the jester, and maybe even the spy will be willing to risk it if they can convince the other two to vote in favor of lynching the jester. Lastly, there is the scenario of no one getting lynched. And by and far, this is favorable to the town, since there's a chance that the arsonist and the werewolf will wipe out each other. This isn't good for the jester, though, because they could end up being wiped out in the process and then not getting lynched at all. This is definitely bad for the werewolf, since the werewolf's already marked for death. And the arsonist, well, unless the arsonist can convince everyone they aren't an arsonist, especially the werewolf, this could be bad for them and they could end up losing. Ironically enough, this is also the most likely thing to happen, mainly due to how the votes could go. Now, when it comes to the voting, this is where it all will play out. See, everybody has the same three choices on how they want to vote: guilty, innocent, or to abstain. As long as the guilty votes outnumber the innocent votes, the person is lynched. And you can pretty much figure out how everyone is going to vote at this point. The spy, regardless who is up, will vote guilty, since they figure town is not likely going to win. The jester will vote innocent. Since they're trying to get themselves lynched, the best way to do that is to vote innocent on an obviously evil person. This makes people wonder if they are actually the evil person. Odd, I know. The arsonist will vote guilty if they know the werewolf is up, but innocent for spy or jester. This is more out of self-preservation. The werewolf will vote guilty for arsonist, but innocent for spy or jester, or if the werewolf is unsure if the arsonist is up. So basically, all in all, no one's likely to be lynched, which is perfect for the arsonist, not so perfect for everyone else. The end results of all this study and analyzing is basically this. If the town wishes to win in this scenario, their best bet is to either lynch the jester and abstain from voting then, or not to lynch anyone and hope that the werewolf figures out who the arsonist is. If the jester wishes to win, they just need to be lynched, and they must push to be lynched successfully. If the arsonist wishes to win, they want to avoid having anyone lynched, or get the werewolf lynched. Both of these require making everyone think that they are a jester, which the jester will help them on. I mean, if people think the arsonist is a jester, then the jester must be arsonist. If the werewolf wishes to win, they must get the arsonist lynched. They cannot second guess on this at all. It's plain and simple. It's the only way the werewolf could win. And if any of this goes to a 7th day with 3 people left, The town, most likely one of the ones left, must convince the jester to abandon their game or the town will lose. That basically sums up everything that can happen in a scenario where only the spy, jester, arsonist, and werewolf are left in town. If you've found my little spiel here interesting at all and enjoy Town of Salem, or even if you just enjoy a good mystery, I would also invite you to pick up a copy of my e-publication, The Trial of Salem. It's hopefully going to be the first of a series I do. It's an unofficial adaptation of a game of Town of Salem. Unofficial being that I basically did all the roles there for in the story. So please, I invite you to check it out. I will have a link in the description where to pick this up at. And again, if you like this and want to see more, leave a comment below, maybe suggesting a scenario, and I can theorize it all out. Have a good day, and also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this.